Hello everyone, and welcome to my presentation, Social and Support Groups for Autistic Adults 101, a Field Guide. Greetings, my name is James Williams. I am an autistic self-advocate, currently in my 30s, who was originally diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. I have been presenting on autism and related issues at various venues and settings since the age of 11 and have traveled independently to speaking engagements and events throughout the U.S. since the age of 17. During my travels throughout the U.S., I have attended meetings and/or hosted presentations at many different types of social and support groups for autistic adults in various states and locations from sea to shining sea, and have been either an invited guest of or have become a member of many social and support groups for autistic adults nationwide. These groups differ in structure, size, and organization, but all share the similar mission of providing a form of social and emotional support for autistic adults via a social community. In this presentation, I will be sharing a field guide wherein I discuss the different types of social and support groups that are routinely offered to autistic adults. This overview is based on my personal experiences visiting, attending, and hosting presentations at such groups nationwide, and the experiences of my friends and colleagues who either facilitate or are members of such groups that have been shared with me. And now, several disclaimers before I continue. Although the content of this presentation is based on real-life experiences, no information regarding the locations of any specific social or support group or the names of any participants mentioned will be shared for confidentiality purposes. The only exception to this are the stories shared by the special guests featured later in the presentation, who are sharing their experiences with their full consent. Some of the content shared within this presentation reflects how social and support groups for autistic adults routinely operated prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. However, other content shared within this presentation has been modified to be applicable to social and support groups for autistic adults, regardless of the changes and adaptations that many of them had to make due to the COVID-19 pandemic, to the best of my ability. Finally, some autistic people prefer identity-first language, and some autistic people prefer person-first language. Thus, the terms autistic person and person with autism will be used interchangeably during this presentation. This is not meant to offend anyone, but to respect people with either preference. This presentation is meant to be a description of various social and support groups that exist for autistic adults. It is not intended to be a statement for or against any type of group or an endorsement of any specific social or support group. Without further ado, let's begin. I shall start with a historical perspective. Although autism was established as a distinct disability in the 1940s, the population of individuals diagnosed with autism began to increase dramatically in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Why this increase began remains a common subject of debate, but most people have acknowledged that in the 1980s and 1990s, a distinct growth in the autistic population indeed began that continues to this day. Some people have argued that this was the start of an autistic baby boom, regardless of its cause. As a consequence of this population growth, along with the fact that many autistic individuals born during the autistic baby boom entered adolescence and adulthood in the late 2000s and early 2010s, many social and support groups were created in order to serve this emerging and increasing population of autistic adults. This does not mean that social and support groups for autistic adults did not exist prior to the autistic baby boom. However, the number of such groups has expanded significantly since the 1990s. So, why would an autistic adult want to join a social or support group in the first place? Many people believe that autistic people don't desire friendship. However, a lot of autistic people have shared that they do want friends. However, the types of friendship that neurotypical people value and desire, alongside the types of friends that neurotypical people encourage autistic people to pursue, don't always work well for people with autism due to their different social needs and values. This can lead to the illusion that an autistic person might not want friends, while this may be the case for some autistic people and some neurotypical people as well. Some autistic people do, in fact, want friends, but desire friendships in ways that differ from most neurotypical people, and may desire to make friends with people that differ from the preferred friendships of neurotypical people. Meanwhile, many autistic people in childhood and adulthood participate in social skills training and/or classes. These classes are typically taught by neurotypical professionals, therapists, and teachers, and they attempt to teach autistic individuals the social skills and common social rules, spoken and unspoken, that are expected by neurotypical people in school, other community settings, and friendships. Although social skills classes have helped many autistic individuals understand the social skills and social expectations needed for them to function in a neurotypical society that they don't always figure out instinctively the way that neurotypical people do, many autistic people discover that the social rules for friendship that neurotypicals have taught them don't always work for them due to having social emotional needs and desires that differ from neurotypical people and even other autistic people as well. Some autistic people also notice that they sometimes get mental exhaustion after constantly having to follow neurotypical social skills that don't come naturally to them. They also may discover that when they make friends with other autistic people, that the social needs and social skills that were taught to them regarding friendship may actually be detrimental to a friendship between two autistic people. Indeed, autistic people have formed an autistic culture comprised of their own social skills alongside spoken and unspoken social rules. These rules have been formed to help autistic people feel comfortable around each other within autistic space. Indeed, many social and support groups implement these rules so that their autistic members feel more comfortable participating in them. Likewise, many social skills and social rules in our society were established so that the neurotypical majority within that society could feel similar feelings of comfort during social interactions, which are routinely based on what makes neurotypicals within that culture, community, and society feel the most comfortable during social interactions, although this vastly differs among neurotypicals of different cultures. By the time an autistic person reaches adulthood, they have often experienced frustration that they are living in a world that does not always understand or acknowledge their unique social emotional needs. Therefore, many autistic adults often want to join social and support groups designed for them so that they can partake in a safe space that enables them to comfortably make friendships with people that value and accept their unique social emotional needs and desires, and so that they can join a social community that follows and accepts the distinct spoken and unspoken rules that are desired by many autistic people like themselves. They also may enjoy partaking in a social or support group that partakes in activities they enjoy doing, but with other like-minded autistic people. That being said, though, not all autistic adults might want to join a social or support group designed for them, and their decision needs to be respected. Participation and membership within a social or support group for autistic adults should always be voluntary, and an adult should always feel as if they have the right to leave a group at any time if they feel it isn't working for them. These groups are ultimately designed for people who want to be there, not for autistic people who don't want to be part of a group or who may be attending against their will. No social or support group should ever be forced on an autistic adult by any person who is a part of their life. But if you are one of those autistic adults wanting to join and become a participant and or member of a social or support group for adults like yourself, this presentation is for you. So, without further ado, let the field guide continue. So, to continue, what are the primary differences between a social group and a support group for autistic adults? Social groups primarily focus on creating a structured time wherein autistic adults can meet at a designated location wherein they can make and maintain friendships with one another, with the hopes that these friendships will form a lasting support network and social community among the adults. Since these groups are primarily for autistic adults to enjoy themselves, they tend not to focus on having discussions regarding autistic issues or activities to help members with autism or host lectures by speakers about autistic issues. Support groups primarily focus on a place where autistic adults can talk openly about a specific issue related to autism within the structure of a safe space at a designated location. They may include social activities, but are more focused on formal discussions about specific autism-related topics, and or bringing in speakers about autism-related topics to help their members feel more comfortable opening up about autism-related issues that can't always be talked about in many settings. Some support groups have the policy of what's said in the group stays in the group and stipulates that their members remain quiet about what is shared outside of the safe space of the support group. Some groups may offer a mix of social and support activities, however, and their structures routinely overlap. Both groups have one thing in common. They strive to create a safe space where autistic adults can befriend each other and build social networks where they can speak freely about their issues. This environment may be very valuable to many autistic adults, since Many of them lack the social skills to facilitate informal social interactions and get-togethers with friends. Some autistic adults have friends, but often rarely see them outside of the context of a planned event, social and/or support group, due to those social deficits and societal social norms. Although a wide variety of social and support groups have been created for autistic adults, the vast majority of such groups are open to any autistic adult aged 18 and over, with a minimum age of 18 in order for a person to enter the group, and the requirement that you must be an autistic adult in order to join. This is not always the case, however. Some social and support groups may be open to adolescents as well and may have a lower minimum age for entry. Other social and support groups may be more inclusive to non-autistic and/or neurotypical adults as well. Some social and support groups for autistic adults are only open to a specific subtype of adult with autism. Some of these subtypes include, but are not limited to, females with autism, LGBTQ+ autistic adults, nonverbal autistic adults, autistic college students, autistic adults within a specific age range, autistic adults of distinct racial and ethnic backgrounds, etc. How are social and support groups for autistic adults typically structured? Although social and support groups for autistic adults can be structured in many ways, this presentation will talk about the common ways that these groups are typically structured. However, there is no one right or wrong way and no one good or bad way to run a social or support group for autistic adults. Most social and support groups for autistic adults are structured as follows. They may be informally organized and operated by individuals without any sponsorship or support by an organization. They may be organized and operate by individuals who are sponsored and/or given financial support by an organization that is not necessarily involved in the operation and activities of the group, but still supports the group's cause and mission. They may be owned and operated by individuals who create and/or belong to an organization for the sole purpose of operating a social or support group for autistic adults or several such groups for legal purposes. Some of these individuals may directly run such social and support groups, or they may recruit people to either run the social and support groups they have organized with them or on their behalf. They may be owned and operated by an organization that facilitates social and/or support groups alongside other programs and events, and who recruit the individuals who are put in charge of operating the social or support group under their management. Some of these organizations may also promote other social and support groups that they do not directly sponsor or facilitate, so that their members are aware of their existence and have the opportunity to participate in them. Regardless of how they are formally organized, however, they are typically internally structured in one of four ways. They may be facilitated by a neurotypical person or a group of neurotypical people who structure the group, establish the group's rules and policies, either with or without its members, and make sure that the group is running smoothly during each meeting. They may be facilitated by a neurotypical person or neurotypical people alongside a person with autism or autistic people who perform the same functions mentioned above. They may be facilitated by an autistic individual or a group of autistic individuals who structure the group, plan the group's scheduled events, and establish the group's rules and policies either with or without its members, and make sure that the group is running smoothly during each meeting, or they may be fully self-run by the group members themselves, who determine the group's structure, plan the group's events, establish and enforce the group's rules and policies, and may take turns facilitating the group without any central leadership or facilitators. Although most social and support groups for autistic adults had to switch from in-person meetings and activities to virtual meetings and activities during the COVID-19 pandemic, or may have decided to suspend meetings or activities entirely due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many social and support groups organized their meetings and events in the following formats prior to the pandemic. Some social and support groups take place solely within a central location that hosts all of their group's meetings alongside the group's events and activities at a predetermined time. Some social and support groups have a central location for some group meetings, but may facilitate events and activities at different locations and may have a combination of group meetings and group activities within different predetermined times. Other social and support groups may have no central location. Instead, all of their events and activities are held at different locations, which may be determined randomly or follow a set pattern. Events and activities during social and support groups vary. However, they follow common patterns. Some social and support groups involve facilitated discussions of specific autism-related issues, sometimes connected to a speaker who discusses that topic. They may also give time for social activities among the members as well. Other groups may facilitate events within their group space or other locations within their community that their members can choose to participate in. Some groups will focus more on autism-related discussions and speakers, and other groups may focus more on organizing social events for their members. In many cases, participation within a social or support group for autistic adults is offered free of charge to its members. Some groups, however, may charge a set fee in order to cover their costs. Other groups may engage in fundraising by their members to cover their costs and to have the ability to pay for any events they organize for their members. And some groups may not charge a fee for their meetings, but may expect their members to pay their expenses when attending events or pay for a designated portion of the cost of attending an event while expecting their members to cover any additional costs of their participation. What are the different pros and cons of structures commonly utilized by social and support groups for autistic adults? Each of the common structures that most social and support groups for autistic adults utilize have unique pros and cons, which I shall now discuss. Only one pro and con will be mentioned for each category described during my presentation due to time constraints and PowerPoint space limitations. Groups exclusively for autistic adults aged 18 and older. Pro, autistic adults may be more able to and/or may feel more comfortable expressing their autistic issues without the presence of younger autistic people and neurotypical individuals. Con, younger autistic people who relate better to adults are not able to participate in these groups, and neurotypical individuals that may be a part of an autistic person's support system are typically not welcome, which may make it difficult for some autistic people to participate. Groups for autistic and neurotypical adults, or allies, aged 18 and older. Pro, autistic adults who don't have the means to attend a social or support group independently are able to bring a neurotypical support person, family member, friend, or ally to the group that can help improve their ability to participate within the group. Con, autistic adults who have been judged negatively by neurotypical people might feel uncomfortable expressing their issues among the neurotypical adults and may feel that they are invaders that invalidate the group's intended safe space. Groups inclusive of autistic adults and autistic individuals under 18. Pro, autistic children and adolescents who relate better to adults can join and meet an autistic adult that they can relate to, who may become a positive role model within their lives. And the autistic children and adults can all learn valuable lessons from one another. Con, autistic adults who may want to share issues specific to adulthood that are not appropriate to discuss or cannot legally be discussed among people under 18 would not be able to express these issues within an all ages group. Groups that are all inclusive of autistic people of all ages and neurotypical individuals or allies of all ages. Pro, autistic participants within an all-inclusive group have a greater variety of individuals to seek for friendship, and the autistic and neurotypical individuals can all learn from each other's different perspectives. Con, autistic and neurotypical individuals may struggle to understand differing views on issues discussed, or may not always share the same interests or feel comfortable engaging in the same events or activities. Groups for various subtypes of autistic adults, e.g., females, nonverbal, LGBTQ+. Pro, autistic adults within the subtype that the group is for might feel more comfortable or maybe more able to express autistic issues that they can't always talk about in a more inclusive group. Con, autistic people who have issues similar to other autistic people within that subtype, but are not part of that subtype, cannot participate and may not have access to an alternate safe space where they can talk and express those issues. Groups facilitated by a neurotypical individual. Pro, autistic adults who may want to participate in a social or support group, but may lack the social skills necessary to properly do so, have the ability to get support from the neurotypical facilitator or facilitators to enable them to properly participate within the group. Con, autistic adults may feel uncomfortable being fully open about their issues in the presence of a neurotypical facilitator that they fear might misunderstand them or judge them negatively when doing so. Groups co-facilitated by neurotypical individuals and people with autism. Pro, some autistic adults may feel a greater level of comfort expressing their issues if they know that at least one facilitator has autism and feels they are more likely to understand them, while other adults can access supports that they may need from a neurotypical facilitator. Con, disagreements can occur between the neurotypical and autistic facilitators regarding how the group should be properly run and how incidents that occur during group meetings should be responded to. Groups facilitated by autistic individuals. Pro, some autistic adults may feel more comfortable expressing their issues and participating in a group that is entirely comprised of autistic people, including the facilitator or facilitators, who may be more understanding and supportive of their unique autistic quirks. Con, social struggles commonly found among autistic adults can interfere with an autistic facilitator's ability to properly acknowledge any incidents or issues that may emerge among members within a social or support group, or understand some of the needs of different autistic people within the group. Groups that are self-run by their members. Pro, Autistic adults within these groups can share responsibilities for the group's leadership and can take turns creating events for the group that often reflect the unique comfort levels and desires of the group's members. Con: autistic adults within these groups may not always be able to understand members whose autistic issues may be different from theirs due to theory of mind limitations and may upset them unintentionally due to not always understanding their needs. To conclude, there are pros and cons to any type of structure that is utilized by a social or support group for autistic adults. Just because a group chooses to operate in a particular form doesn't make it inherently good or bad. At the same time, groups with each type of structure I have mentioned have thrived and consist of members who enjoy participating in their groups. Most groups that succeed, regardless of their structure, do so when their leaders and members acknowledge the unique pros and cons of their chosen structure and create strategies to make their structure work with their members. Now that I have discussed how social and support groups are commonly structured, I shall now welcome the following special guests to my presentation. The facilitator and members of a support group for autistic adults facilitated by an autistic adult and sponsored by a larger organization, an autism community store. I will be interviewing them about their experiences within the support group that they are a part of. Okay, so now that I have talked to everyone listening about the structure and some of the pros and cons about social groups for autistic adults that are run and moderated by autistic adults, I am going to bring as my special guests the moderators and attendees of a social group that is run by autistic adults and is for autistic adults, known as the MAC, that is based in Denver, Colorado. Please welcome these individuals as they talk about MAC, its structure, and the benefits that they have received by being a part of this social group for autistic adults.
Great. Thank you, James. And hello, Family Cafe folks. My name is Brian B. I'm an autistic artist in Colorado, USA, in the greater Denver area, and I help facilitate the Metro Autism Consortium. Xenia, would you like to say hello?
Hello, everybody down in the great state of Florida. I am Xenia Grant, and I live in the beautiful state of Denver, Colorado, and I am one of the co-founders of the MAC, or Metro Autism Consortium, which started in the year 2019. And it's great, to see everybody. Well, eventually I'll virtually see you, and just to say hi.
Thanks, Xenia. Afia Marie.
Hello. I am in the southern Four Corners part of Colorado, and I enjoy being able to communicate with people that understand what it means to be on the spectrum and get the help and resources needed so that we could all live happy, fulfilled lives.
Thank you. Chris.
Hello, dear friends. My name is Chris Patton, and I am in Denver, Colorado. I love Mac because it gives me an opportunity to express and to lead as an autistic, independent adult makes me feel purposeful, hug you friends, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So James, that's us. We've got from an original co-founder of the Metro Autism Consortium group, Xenia, to folks that have just been there 3, maybe 4 times so far. So a little bit of a range of some of us that go to this group. What's the first question?
So, tell me a little bit about Mac. What is Mac? And how was it created?
I'll answer that. It was created through the Autism Community Store as a support group for adults on the autism spectrum throughout Denver and all of Colorado. I mean, Alpha Maria lives in the Western Slope. So, since COVID, it definitely is all of Colorado. It's the Autism Community Stores in Aurora, which is the second biggest city in the state of Colorado. And it was started as a support group where people actually met each other. This was before COVID. And it was started so people with the autism can get to know each other better and talk about things that are near and dear to their hearts and issues that are important to them. And then, because the meetings are 2 hours long, and then have fun and games afterwards, because people like to have fun. Yes, we talk about serious topics, but also at the same time, we like to enjoy each other's company.
Thank you, Xenia. May I repeat that? It's going to be basically the same information, but may I answer the question as well? Okay. So MAC is a monthly light support group for autistic adults and their allies. That's something that we added in after it started, after it'd been around for a year. So light support group for autistic adults. We, as Xenia brought out, we began in the fall of 2019. It may have been towards the end of the summer. And then I came in later in the fall. And I helped facilitate it. I worked for Autism Community Store before MAC, and then continued to work at the store during the pandemic. But a lot of my duties shifted over to helping MAC stay around. Autismcommunitystore.com is in fact a store, a physical store with an address, also an online store. And also we do supports and resources there. What does MAC do? It does what Xenia said. It has a first half that's more about resources and support, and a second half that's more about fun and social connecting. That's my answer about what is MAC.
Thank you both. So, you have established that MAC is comprised of autistic adults and their allies. However, it is clearly moderated and run by autistic adults. What benefits do you see that MAC is able to reap because it is an autistic adult run social group for autistic adults.
Yeah, I'd like to do that one, but can we pause first? Chris, did you have something that you wanted to add in? No? Okay, just checking. Okay. Xenia, I'd like to describe how, James just called us a group led by autistic adults. I'd like to describe how that is. Would you like to do that?
What I was thinking of, the way of answering this question is about one of the advantages of a support group that is run by adults on the spectrum. And I think one of the advantages is that there's a culture that autistic people have, and it's a culture that is comforting to a lot of those on the spectrum, because the expectations aren't as when a support group is led by a professional, and it's and a lot of support groups are led by professionals, and they're just as good. It's just an autistic run support group is just different. That when it's the support group is led by or moderated by someone on the autism spectrum, it means that the cultural expectations they're different. And sometimes people like that, some autistic people find that comforting.
Thank you, Xenia. Chris, Afia, Marie, you have each probably been to groups that are run by professionals that are support groups, and groups that are run by people that are on the autism spectrum. Would you like to share with what it's like at MAC for you? Yeah. Xenia, would you please mute when you're not talking?
What it's like at MAC for me is I'm able to hear thoughts and ideas, stories of from people who are on the spectrum, and then also having a facilitator that's on the spectrum. They're able to understand what resources perhaps are needed for everyone on the spectrum, so we are able to get resources that are useful. Because I have gone to where the facilitator is not on the spectrum, and sometimes they give you resources that you can't use or that won't benefit you. And so it's just easier. I mean, it's more helpful when you're in like mind with people, to be able to have the options to participate, not participate, feel comfortable to participate. And I had all this planned in my head before, and then I started talking and it all went away. I should have wrote it down. That's another fault, that I have a great idea and then I don't write it down and it goes away. But yeah, that's basically how I like being a part of MAC, because even if my idea that I had goes away, I'm able to still be accepted and welcomed into the group, and everybody forgives me.
Thank you.
Good. Think I think I appreciate gutty, autistic people guiding and leading because it makes me feel hugged and held, and my voice is prioritized, but I am not special or singled out, just another good human.
Yeah, I can't follow that up, man. That's it.
Well, thank you very much. Next question. What are some of the challenges that Mac has faced as an autistic adult run social group, if at all?
I'll take that one. My first time visiting Mac became my first time leading Mac. That was a challenge. I'm a performing artist and a public speaker, and I'm familiar with like leadership or go with it and keep the energy positive. So that's what I did that day. I was just like, well, I don't know why it hasn't started yet, but let's get this started. And then they were like, will you do it again next month? So that was one of the challenges, was a transition of leadership from some of the folks that began it to some of the folks that were going to continue it. Obviously, the pandemic was another one. Hello, camera. Switching from in-person, because that's how we began, face-to-face only, to online. And I don't just mean the technology of switching to online, but the energy, the accessibility. And then one other struggle that I have ongoing is scheduling people and watching for what are their talents, and then bringing in people, whether that's an autistic adult or a family member or a presenter from the Autism Society of Colorado. Or one time we had a group that was contracting with the TSA sensory designing group. TSA for when you go to the airport, Transit Security Administration might be what that stands for. There's a couple of challenges, and with that, I'll pass.
With me, I don't have the greatest executive functioning, and so it's hard for me to keep things going. I'm a person that does well with structure that's imposed from without. I have a hard time creating structure within. And so that's one of the difficulties that I have. And I thank Brian for being so gracious to step up. The original co-facilitator is now in San Francisco. He was as good, different talents, different way of doing things, but he was just as good. Is that when you don't have the best executive functioning, it's hard to keep things going. And I don't have a background in the arts. My background is political science. So the artistic background really does help.
Oops. I don't know if I'm a spectator or a side participant. I don't know what to call myself, but seeing how the group has been run the only 3 times that I've been there, it seems like it would require effort on the one who is kind of navigating the meeting to be prepared so that they know how to keep it organized and stay on time and be able to produce information that would be utilized by the group. So I see the challenge that you have to definitely be prepared ahead of time for it, for each group, so that the interest is kept and everyone is able to benefit from gathering together.
I'm glad you shared that, Afia Marie. Can I ask you something about that?
Yeah.
Remember that exercise that you once were like, oh, I know a game that's real similar to that. Do you remember what that was we were talking about?
The Would You Rather game?
The Would You Rather. Yes, that's the one. So would you be willing to facilitate a section of that this coming Saturday in the second half in the games part?
Oh, yeah, I would.
And it's okay to say no, just because we're on camera, you don't have to say yes.
No, I would actually like to do that. I didn't know when I was going to, because I know we had talked about it. But yeah, I would like to facilitate that.
Okay, you can do some Would You Rather. And then we had that lady come last time from the improvisation group for people with different abilities called Allprov. And she gave us a couple of cool games too. If you want to, you can incorporate some of those or just the games that you know.
Oh, that's right. There was a game that we didn't get a chance to play that I wanted to, where you start off the story. Yeah, I can put that together.
All right, you got my email.
I'll be prepared ahead of time.
Cool. You've got my email, you got my phone number. So if you want to reach out to prep or just come and play and help us play.
Yeah, I could do that.
Right on. Chris, did you want to throw anything in? We were asked about any challenges for Mac. The challenges could be about the group, like we've talked about organizing it, or it could be personally for you in relation to the group.
Find challenge in hugging my own self and feeling comfortable enough in my skin to share creativity and free thoughts with everyone, but it is a good challenge. Learning to be vulnerable is healthy and liberating good stuff. Good.
Thank you, Chris.
So now the final question I am going to ask our special guest today is, what are the benefits that you feel you have reaped from either being a participant and or a moderator of MAC?
All right, I'll kick that one off. I am regularly in training in life to survive, to plug in my resiliency. And it can be a really challenging life to live. I am privileged to be an artist and to tap into that and to welcome in my arts in literally everything I do. So one of the benefits that I've had is to be a leader in MAC, but also to support other people to be leaders. For example, you just saw me ask Afia Marie, would she lead a section? That conversation, I have that conversation every month and throughout the month with various other people. So it's nice to see people shine. And I'll pass.
I forgot what the question was. Can you please repeat it?
Yes. As autistic adults, what benefits do you feel that you have reaped as either being moderators and or participants of MAC?
And I can answer both of those because I've been a moderator and a participant, sometimes both at the same time. With being a moderator, it helps me to use talents that I don't realize that I have. Because one of the things I do is, I let people know when the meeting is, usually through Facebook and email, sometimes by phone calling. And also with moderating, just, it's not always, it just uses a different aspect of a talent that I don't always use. With me, a participant, this is, I've made friends. Before COVID, I would travel to Aurora to hop on the light rail and travel to Aurora, spend some time there. It's just something that, that I enjoy. I learn something new. I hang around with people that I like, even if it's through Zoom because of COVID. So it gives me opportunities to let my talents in many ways come out.
I think Afia Marie is going to share. There we go.
Figure out this unmute thing eventually. I got to be a mock moderator because of a time misunderstanding. So that's why I got to play the game partially. That was fun. Being a moderator makes you feel like a boss. And all the jobs I've ever had, I've always just been the worker bee, unfortunately, never the boss. Always miss it just by that much. So that it's fun. And then as a participant, I agree with Xenia, you get to make friends and communicate with other people on the level of understanding and care, and know that you're being supported by like-minded individuals.
MAC. I feel like being a part of MAC has given me the opportunity to lead and be trusted to teach and stand in my power as a poet. Very validating and very fulfilling. Love this group.
I got that. Yes. Thank you, Chris. Well, Family Cafe, thanks for joining us for a little bit of Q&A about Metro Autism Consortium.
Well, thank you, James, for letting us participate. We really, all of us appreciate it. I hope that the people at Family Cafe enjoy and learn from us. I think it's great.
Thank you for agreeing to share your stories and experiences during my presentation about social and support groups for autistic adults. So, to close my presentation on social and support groups for autistic adults, I shall now give advice for autistic people regarding how to find a social or support group that meets your needs as an autistic person, and how to become a successful participant or member of such a group after joining. Although the COVID-19 pandemic has required many social and support groups that chose not to suspend their meetings and activities entirely during the pandemic to meet and conduct most of their activities virtually, some advice related to social interactions and group meetings that occur in person can be just as relevant to virtual social interactions and group meetings. This advice is based on my own experiences as a member and participant of various social and support groups, both in person and virtual, the experiences of autistic friends and others I have met within those groups, and my own observations regarding why some social and support groups I have participated in succeed and thrive, while others struggled with their goals and mission, sometimes resulting in the group failing and going under. When you are an autistic adult looking for a social or support group to join, remember the following. Most social and support groups for autistic adults aspire to be inclusive and welcoming to as many autistic adults as possible, or as many autistic adults within the subtype that the group is for and or open to. However, due to the wide variety of different subtypes of autistic people, very few social and support groups work well for every autistic individual that joins. Indeed, some autistic people can be inherently incompatible with each other due to subtype differences. Therefore, when you are an autistic adult looking for a social and or support group, the key is to find a social and/or support group that meets your unique needs and understands your distinct autistic subtype. Sometimes a group that is specifically for your subtype of autism may work best for you, since the members of that group may be more likely to understand the needs of your autistic subtype and may be more compatible with your social quirks. This is why many of these groups thrive, even though they exclude autistic people who aren't a part of that subtype from participation or membership. Remember that due to the nature of the autistic spectrum and the wide variety of autistic subtypes that exist, very few social and support groups can accommodate every autistic subtype. Just because you may not be welcome in a group that isn't open to your autistic subtype, or a social and/or support group is unable to meet your unique autistic needs, doesn't mean the group is bad or exclusive. Many social and support groups for autistic people may work well for some autistic subtypes, but not others. When you have found a social or support group that you might want to join, attend one of its meetings. While attending, notice how you feel when you are part of the group. Do you feel relaxed while participating? Or is participation within the group increasing your feelings of anxiety and discomfort? Remember that participation within a social or support group should be voluntary. If a group is making you feel uncomfortable, you are not required to join the group. Feel free to leave if your gut instinct is telling you to walk away from a social or support group that you aren't comfortable being a part of. Just because a group dynamic enables some people to feel comfortable together doesn't mean that you might feel comfortable around them. Your comfort needs might be very different than theirs. When you have found a social and/or support group that you click with and have joined, you should keep the following in mind. Most social and support groups for autistic people are not social free-for-alls. They are not places where autistic people can do exactly whatever they like. Although some autistic people may want to join a social and/or support group so that they can behave the way they want to freely without neurotypical restrictions, the reality is that autistic behaviors that upset neurotypical people can also upset other autistic people as well. Most social and support groups for autistic adults will have rules and expectations to ensure that their members feel comfortable participating in them, that also determine what behaviors can and cannot be displayed during group meetings and group events. The thing to remember, however, is that these social rules will often not be based on neurotypical social expectations. Rather, they will likely be based on autistic social needs and desires and the social codes of autistic culture, and may be often voted for or agreed on by the members themselves, alongside the facilitator or facilitators. Look for a social and/or support group for autistic adults where the social rules and expectations valued by autistic people and among friendships between autistic people and others are followed and welcomed. You don't want to walk into a group where people are following neurotypical social rules like robots, which can be detrimental to the group. Indeed, when you are in such a group, you may learn more about the dynamics of autistic culture and the social rules and expectations that routinely occur between autistic people. In addition, many social and support groups for autistic people are not dating groups. They are places to form friendships with other autistic people that are non-romantic and/or platonic in nature. You should not join a social or support group for the sole purpose of finding a romantic partner or significant other unless the group is a dating group and its purpose is to help people with autism do so. Although many autistic people do find romantic partners at social and/or support groups and form successful romantic relationships with other members of social and support groups. Finding a partner shouldn't be the sole reason why a person joins a social or support group, unless, as mentioned earlier, it is specifically a dating group. However, just because a social or support group periodically hosts discussions regarding dating and relationships while having autism does not automatically mean that it is a dating group. If you are a member of a social or support group and you find someone that you end up dating within the group, make sure that any drama related to your relationship doesn't interfere with the group's meetings or you and your partner's ability to function within the group. You should also make sure that you have a plan B in place in the event your romantic relationship fails, regarding what to do if you break up with your significant other and how to manage any awkwardness that may occur if both of you remain members in the same social group and must coexist together peacefully after your relationship has ended. Although research has shown that autism likely affects an equal number of people, regardless of gender and gender identity, the majority of people diagnosed with autism still tend to be male. As a result, many social and support groups for autistic adults tend to be all male or have a male majority with a female and/or non-binary minority. Sadly, many neurotypical social norms tend to discourage non-romantic cross-gender friendships, which may make autistic females and non-binary autistic individuals feel as if they can't make and keep friendships with the autistic males within a social or support group. In addition, sometimes social and support groups cater to the needs of the male majority and ignore the unique needs of their non-binary and female minorities. If you are a part of a group's female or non-binary minority, you should try to find ways for the group to help encourage non-romantic friendships between yourself and the male majority if you want to pursue those friendships, and to establish social guidelines for those friendships that are beneficial for you and your friends, even if they deviate from the expectations of neurotypical social norms. If you are part of the male majority, you should still show respect towards the minority female and non-binary members of the group. Don't assume that something you are comfortable openly discussing or an event you are comfortable participating in is something that they may be comfortable discussing or an event they are comfortable participating in. Likewise, some social and support groups may also develop a subtype majority, wherein the majority of their autistic members belong to a specific subtype of autism, and the group begins to cater to their needs while ignoring the needs of other autistic subtypes that may represent a minority within the group. If you are part of the subtype majority, try to be respectful of members in your group that are not part of that subtype. Likewise, if you are part of a subtype minority, speak up for yourself and share how your needs differ from the majority within the group you are in, if you feel comfortable doing so. However, although social and support groups should try to accommodate different autistic subtypes as much as they possibly can, don't be ashamed if a social or support group doesn't work for you because it couldn't accommodate the needs of your particular subtype. Sometimes it's best to know when you should leave a group and look for a group that is better suited for you. You could also try to form a subgroup within the group you are in, or another separate group comprised of the minority members that are part of your autistic subtype that suits your needs better. The same should apply to any minority that forms within a social or support group for autistic individuals. Groups should respect the needs of their minorities as much as possible, rather than simply catering to the majority of their autistic members as much as they possibly can. That doesn't mean that everyone will feel welcome within the group, but groups should still try to help as many autistic people feel welcome nonetheless. Remember that when you join a social or support group for autistic adults, you may encounter an autistic person whose needs are different or the opposite of yours, and whose viewpoints and beliefs are different or the opposite of yours. You shouldn't take those differences personally. They are likely the result of different life experiences related to a type of autism that differs from yours. Nor should you try to invalidate their views or discredit them. No one is perfect. This is especially true for autistic people that have social issues. The same social issues that routinely cause autistic people to experience social struggles with neurotypical people can also cause autistic people to experience social struggles with other autistic people. Autistic adults in social and support groups are going to make social mistakes and engage in behaviors they may regret. The question is, can they be forgiven for their mistakes and learn from them? Or are their social behaviors so detrimental to the group that it's best for them to temporarily or permanently leave the group? Finally, if something that makes you comfortable makes another autistic person uncomfortable, even if the person in question is an autistic friend or significant other, don't take those comfort differences personally either. They were probably formed long before you knew that other person and/or became friends with them. You wouldn't want people pressuring you to do things that make you uncomfortable. Therefore, you should ultimately respect the differences of other autistic people within any social or support group that you are a part of. And now, to conclude my field guide on social and support groups for autistic adults, participation within a social and/or a support group has helped many autistic adults form lasting friendships and become part of a social community and support network for autistic people. These support networks have helped many autistic adults manage issues commonly faced during adulthood by autistic people. Sometimes these social groups may help an autistic person develop a sense of autistic pride and a positive autistic social identity. The advice and information offered within this presentation are based on my personal experiences and may not always apply to every autistic adult that has viewed my presentation. In the end, all autistic adults should do what is best for them regarding how to properly make friends, whether or not a social or support group may benefit them, and what type of social or support groups are most likely to meet their unique social emotional needs. Thanks for coming to my presentation on social and support groups for autistic adults. I hope that this information is useful for any autistic adult viewing this presentation that is currently looking for a social or support group to join, for whatever reason that might be. To learn more about my advocacy work, check out my website at www.jamesmw.com. Or feel free to email me at the following email address, jmw820@comcast.net. Otherwise, have an amazing rest of your day.